I want to use this video to talk about two more sources of research guides that are specifically for foreign law. The first I wanted to talk about was the Law Library of Congress website. Now, this used to be way easier to find, but they changed how the site is organized, and now there's no real easy way to get to these guides. My recommendation is to Google Library of Congress Nations of the World, and it's the second link that comes up. Here's the URL. They've buried this for some reason, but basically what this is very brief lists of places to find primary and secondary sources on a ton of different countries organized alphabetically. So if we go to the China guide, for example, we have just really quick links to the Constitution, some links to parts of the executive branch, of the judicial branch, and the legislative branch, and even links to more guides. You'll often find the research guides, a link to other research guides. Again, most researchers are often using multiple research guides to cover all bases. Unlike GlobalX, there's very little explanation. It's just, here are some links. So it's pretty brief, but if you need to just quickly jump to, official links of the Supreme Court of China, or if you need to just quickly find links to a bunch of different research guides that Library of Congress has determined to be particularly helpful, you can use Library of Congress research guides. Now, all the research guides we've talked about so far they might talk about resources that are paid or limited to a particular library, but accessing the guides is free. The last guide that I want to talk about, Foreign Law Guide, is something that the library pays for. And this is something that you're probably not going to have access to outside of the library, unless you're working for an international organization like the UN. The way to access Foreign Law Guide, you got to go to the Bully Library homepage. That's going to be under our A to Z databases list. And you got to click F for Foreign Law Guide. Now, going through the A to Z database list, or searching for Foreign Law Guide in Library Catalog, or finding the link to this guide through one of our research guides, for example, our Foreign Law Research Guide links to Foreign Law Guide, FLG. That's going to be advantageous because this is a paid resource that you have to access through the university, and you have to go through the library proxy to access this. A lot of university databases, you're going to need to log in through the library website. Otherwise, you'll just have access issues. So just keep in mind, library-specific databases, you need to go through the library website to access them. Foreign Law Guide has an alphabetical list of countries. And if we click through one of these, say the Australia Research Guide, we will find a couple things. First of all, there's some introductory resources. For example, an introduction to the legal system of Australia. Some good overviews here. There's a little bit of research guidance, so some notes on places to find major primary sources, and some recommended secondary sources, and even guides. More guides on legal research in Australia. But the big claim to fame for Foreign Law Guide in particular is this index of laws by subject. So let's say we wanted to find Australian laws on cybercrime. So if we go down to C, click through here. So what you're going to find here are major secondary sources explaining cybercrime law in Australia, and a list of major statutes and possibly cases that are relevant depending on the country. Let's look at another example. If we wanted to go back and look at, let's say, Cameroon, if we wanted to look at animal laws in Cameroon, in this case, you'll find just a couple links to highlighted statutes, it looks like. For countries that are not in the global north, the coverage of Foreign Law Guide is much more limited. We don't have that list of major secondary sources and primary sources that we saw with Australia. We just have a couple links to some statutes on animal welfare to get you started. You can also look at foreign law guide by subject if you want to do some comparative legal research. So if you go laws by subject, you can look at, say, communications laws from all these different countries. This will just take you directly to communications laws in those countries. So let's look at Denmark. This accept all cookies thing won't stop popping up. Denmark. Get out of here. We have major secondary sources and major primary sources on communications law in Denmark. But again, this is a paid resource. You're probably not going to have access to this unless you're working for an international organization like the UN.